1853 reproduction mountain howitzer.
When you're ready, you eat that when you get back at home.
Okay, it fires a 12-pound ball, shell, case, and canister. Canister is like a throwing like 300 rounds downfield at once. We fired canister out of these cannons. It covers about a 40-yard swath, and it just rips apart. Okay, they would fire normally like a pound of powder out of this. It has a range of 1,000 yards. Canister you would fire like 300 yards and below. The other rounds you know put in there. Loved carrying. They had a pair of these. They would get about 800 yards from a town, blow up a couple shells in, and said, "Okay, I need you to give me feed for my horses, food for my men, and all the money you got. If not, we commence firing again." Only one town refused General Forrest, and he burned it to the ground. Because they were out of range, rifle range. And that's why they had to comply or get destroyed. Okay, we'll go through the procedures now of how to you have the vent tools, you got the vent is 10 vent. The vent is at the back of the cannon. That's where we put the friction primer in. It fires the cannon. He cleans that out, make sure there's nothing in the vent hole. Then they cover that up, and that with a piece of leather or whatever, so they don't let air go back into the barrel. So if there is embers in there or anything else, that when you put a round down there, it doesn't fire it off because it smothers it. Okay. The reason for that being is in the Fort Sumter, the first battle of the Civil War, nobody died in the bombardment. The bombardment was 3 days. They reduced Fort Sumter down into a bunch of bricks. Okay, but at the surrender ceremony, they were going to fire off a 100-gun salute. On the 47th round, the cannoneer that's in the #1 spot, max spot there, he didn't do his job well enough. So when he put down a round, it fired off. He was holding on to that ramrod. It also took his arm downfield too. And so he bled to death. That was the first casualty of the Civil War, was the artillerist on the first part of the gun. And it's still that dangerous today. And back in the Civil War, the powder bags are in burlap. And you always had to fish out that rest of the burlap, but you'd still have threads back in there. And that's why you'd have it. Nowadays we use aluminum foil, so it's a little bit safer. Okay, the next step is worms. If there was any part of that burlap bag in there, that's what they do. They put that worm in there and pull out the big part of the bag. Next order is sponge. They put a wet sponge down there. Any embers that were down in there, that would extinguish them. They hope.
They hope.
Okay, they pull that out. Next order is sight the piece. They would sight it, elevate it, turn it, whatever they had to do then. The mountain howitzer's very light, very mobile. No problem at doing that at all. Okay, next order is advance the round. We'll take the round in, see, like I said, it's made out of aluminum foil now. I wrap mine with 9 wrappings all around on all 4 sides, so you got to go through 9 layers of heavy-duty commercial aluminum foil to get this. I've thrown these in a fire, and it takes like a minute before they cook off. So we shouldn't have any problem. You advance the round, you put it in here. You'd always have the round in front of them, in case the enemy was shooting at him, that they'd hit him and not the round. Next thing would be they ram it down. He's already done that. Next thing is they prick. They take a brass pick, make sure it's seated there, and then he pushes it through. Then the next order is prime. He takes a friction primer, which is full of fulminated mercury and gunpowder and a serrated wire. When they pull that wire out, it causes a spark, which lights off the candle. they're waterproof and everything else. Not like the Revolutionary War where they'd stick a quill of gunpowder down there and they'd light it with a match. So if it was rainy or wet or anything else, you couldn't fire a cannon in the Rev War. Probably my success rate on friction primer is probably like 99%. Very few of them we ever get misfire. Okay, the next order is prepare. The cannoneers would front, would cover up their ears, and that. We got prepare, fire.